Hi, Brian. As you know, I'm a physicist with interest in biology and medicine, applications of physics concepts, both metaphorical and literal. And one of these concepts that I find of interest, which exists both in physics and medicine, is the concept of stress. For small stresses, deformations occur which are reversible. For larger stresses, deformations become irreversible, and eventually for very large stresses, the object can be broken into pieces. And my question to you is whether any of these concepts can be found in medicine and physiology, of course, and whether physics can be useful in understanding these medical concepts and physiological ones.
Sure. Well, physics
and medicine is a rich and powerful intersection.
Of course. And stress is, the chronic activated stress response is the most under-recognized element of public health. And there are two basic forms of toxic stress. One is cortisol driven, and it works on the emotional center of the brain. It's mediated by this amygdala part of the brain, and it drives fear. And anger is rooted in fear, but chronic fear doesn't really exist. It's imaginary. It's not a real phenomenon, but unfortunately it's real. It's a reality, but it's not. It's imagined stress, and so chronic fear, what it does is it promotes anxiety, depression, and accelerates the chronic
diseases.
Aging. For example, depression. Okay, there's a 30% increased incidence of acute cardiac events in the setting of depression, as opposed to non-depressive patients, such as a heart attack or acute myocardial infarction, and a 36% increased risk of fatal arrhythmias, so a fatal cardiovascular event. But one of my favorite quotes by Mark Twain was, this is actually, it's actually funny. I've suffered a great many tragedies in my life, most of which never happened. Very apropos to this topic. So anyway, the second type of chronic stress is a resistance to cortisol, right? And how this works is it's mediated by this brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, and it causes a phosphorylation of the receptor to cortisol, inactivating it. So there's a resistance to cortisol. And importantly, the way cortisol works is it drives the transcription, the gene transcription of proteins
that creates
the energy-producing machinery carried in the mitochondria. All right, so oxidative metabolism. So you can't make energy, and so that makes sense, because if how does this cortisol resistant form of stress is so-called burnout. All right, now burnout manifests as exhaustion, physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion. If you're not making energy, that's intuitive and it makes sense. But also the fact that it works on the amygdala, which is the fear center. So the absence of fear. So these people with burnout, they suffer divorce, suicide, alcohol, drug addiction. You're not afraid of these things. And that is the reality of the chronic activated stress response, not only driving chronic diseases of aging, but these other tragic parts of human life, unfortunately. Now,